Hey everybody, welcome to the Mountain in the Mist kitchen. Today we are going to be making some venison jerky, although this recipe works really great with lamb as well. Now, venison and lamb jerky is a wonderful quick snack that we eat all the time here at Mountain in the Mist. It's really high in protein, it's super delicious, and it's pretty quick and easy to make. With mostly ingredients that we've harvested here on the homestead and just 3 simple steps of prepping the meat, mixing the marinade, and smoking, you have a great snack that beats anything you can buy at the grocery store. So let's grab our meat and get started. All right, here's the piece of meat that we will be using to make jerky today. This is the top round from a deer, so that's a muscle in the back leg. As you can see, it's very low in fat, which will make a nice shelf-stable product because fat's the thing that's usually going to go rancid in a dehydrated meat product. And it's also a cut of meat with a real robust texture, which will give us a nice chewy jerky at the end. Right now, it's kind of in a semi-frozen state. It feels like one of those gel ice packs, which helps with slicing it. I'm gonna go get my slicer out and we're gonna put this piece of meat on it and I'm gonna show you guys how thick I like to cut my jerky. All right, now that we've got the slicer out, one of the things that we're gonna wanna be sure we pay attention to is the grain of the meat. So if you look here, you can kind of see that the fibers of the muscle are all running lengthwise with this piece of meat. And that means we're going to want to cut against that grain kind of crosswise here. At least that's how I like to cut it to get the texture of jerky that kind of pulls apart really easily in your teeth. So I'm going to take that piece of meat and keeping the orientation I want in mind, put it on my slicer. I've got my slicer here set for 6 millimeters of width. I'm going to turn it on, cut a couple pieces, and show you guys just exactly how thick they are. So here's kind of one of those pieces. It's a real nice thick piece of jerky. It's not like that paper thin stuff that you'll get in a package at the store. So I'm going to keep slicing this jerky up, and we'll get a nice pile of sliced meat here. Here we have a nice pile of sliced venison. As you can see, it's about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 of a centimeter thick. One nice thing about making your jerky this thick is that if you don't have a slicer, you can pretty easily cut this with a knife. It's not, something you need a razor sharp blade to cut super thin, especially if you have it semi-frozen like I do with this meat here. Now let's make a marinade that we can get this meat soaking in. Now let's get started making the marinade for our jerky. The base of our marinade today is going to be plum butter, which is basically just a bunch of plums that we harvested in the summer and then cooked down for a very, very long time, reducing them on the stove until we got this kind of butter-like consistency that you'll see in a little bit. This stuff's really, really rich, sweet. It's got a bit of tanginess. It's a great base for a all-purpose jerky. But to balance that rich sweetness, one of my kind of secret ingredients to jerky recipes is pickled beet brine. Now this pickled beet brine is, as it sounds, just the brine from beets we've pickled, but it really adds a nice kind of earthy umami character. The salty acidity balances the rich sweetness of the plum butter very nicely. So we're going to add a little bit of that. Then for spices, we're going to add 2 simple things off the homestead. One is Nootka garlic, which is a really nice pungent spicy variety. And the other is some freeze-dried rosemary. Because this rosemary is freeze-dried, it retains all of the kind of flavor characteristics of fresh rosemary, which I find really nice in the jerky, but we don't add a lot because it can be overpowering. Next thing we're gonna add to this marinade is a ground up Carolina Reaper pepper. Now the Carolina Reaper is a super hot pepper and its main purpose in this recipe is going to be to make sure that we don't eat all this jerky too fast. And the final 2 ingredients we're gonna add are salt and pepper. These are the only 2 ingredients that don't come off the homestead, but they're pretty essential to making good jerky in my. To get started making the marinade, the first thing I'm gonna do is get my spices ground up and ready to get dissolved in the liquid. So I'm gonna take the black pepper, the freeze-dried rosemary and that dangerous Carolina Reaper pepper and put it in my spice grinder here. And I'm just gonna pulse it until everything's kind of a nice fine powder. And here you can see we've got a nice powdered mix of rosemary, Carolina Reaper, and black pepper. Next, it's gonna be time to get the garlic prepared. So I'll peel a few cloves off of this head here, and we'll get them peeled and pressed into the bowl. All right, we've got that garlic peeled, and we'll pop it in the press here and squeeze it into the bowl. Let's get a closer look in on that bowl. All right, in the bowl you can see we have the garlic that we've pressed, and now we're going to add to it those spices that we ground up earlier, the rosemary, the black pepper, and the Carolina Reaper pepper. Next, we are going to add a few spoonfuls of our plum butter and just look at the consistency on that stuff. It's nice and thick. We'll add a good amount of that since it is going to be the kind of base flavor of our jerky here. Beautiful. And then we'll add a little bit of that secret ingredient, pickled beet juice. Just a touch. Too much of this, if you get carried away, it can really make the jerky a little bit unpleasant. It's just kind of that secret sauce. Finally, we'll throw in a good bit of salt. And we'll add just enough water to make this a nice consistency. Now that we've added just a little bit of water, let's get it all mixed in. It's a pretty good consistency. It's got a nice liquidiness to it. And once it's mixed with the meat and its juices, it'll all get covered really well. All right, we've got our marinade mostly mixed up here. Before we put the meat in, let's give it a taste and see what we think. Yeah, it's got some spice to it with that Carolina Reaper in there. You get the base kind of sweetness from the plum, a little bit of that rosemary. It's balanced really nicely with that kind of earthiness of the beet. I'm excited to see what this jerky turns out like. All right, I'm still recovering a little bit from that bite of marinade, but we're gonna add this pile of meat that we sliced earlier on in there now. Now with all the meat in the bowl with the marinade, we're gonna stir it around and get it all evenly coated. Once that's done, we're just gonna toss this in the fridge and let it sit for a couple days until we smoke it. Now I've got the meat all mixed up here with the marinade. I like to vacuum seal my meat while it's sitting in the fridge because it helps the marinade get into the meat a little bit more and it keeps everything nice and clean in the fridge. There's no open containers with raw meat hanging out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this vacuum sealed up and put in the fridge, and we'll see you in a couple days when it's time to smoke it. So this meat has been marinating in the fridge for a couple of days now, and every so often I come in here and I just kind of massage it to get that marinade all evenly coated. But now it's time to take it out to the smoker and get it cooked up. All right, so welcome to the smoker's corner here. We've got our offset charcoal smoker that we're not going to be using today because I'm in a little bit of a rush and going to let the machines do the heavy lifting. So we've got the Traeger over here. Now with the Traeger, I really like to use cherry pellets. I find that the Cabela's brand pellets are really good. So that's what we'll be using today. On the offset charcoal smoker, usually I like to load it up with wood from our fruit orchard. So sometimes it gets plum wood, sometimes it gets apple wood. Both smokers work really, really well to make this jerky. So I'm going to spread this bag of jerky out on the smoker here. And I'm going to try and not have any pieces touching or overlapping too much so that everything cooks nice and evenly. We'll bring you in here for a closer shot. You can see just how this looks as I get it spread out on the smoker. All right, that's all the meat. So we've got all of that deer jerky on the Traeger, nice and spread out. And we're just gonna simply set it to 180 degrees and let it start smoking. It'll cook for about 3 hours and we'll see you then. It's been about 3 hours, so let's take a look at this jerky in here. It's looking pretty good. It's nice and dry on the outside. It's got a little bit of flexibility to it, but it's starting to kind of crack when you bend it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a piece off and let it cool down and then test for doneness, because when it's still warm, it can be deceiving. Here we have our piece of test jerky that I pulled off the smoker. It's cooled down a little bit. Hopefully you can kind of see the texture on that. It's nice and firm. When we go to split it or crack it in half, kind of pulls apart with some stringy fibers there, but it mostly breaks nice and evenly in half. So that's the texture I really like my jerky to have. If you like it drier, smoke it a little longer. If you like it more moist, smoke it a little less. Let's do a little taste test now. It's really got a nice texture, not too chewy. The spice from that Carolina Reaper comes through for sure. The plummy sweetness is there to balance it. It's not too salty. A lot of times jerky is too salty, but this is something I could snack on all day long. So I'm going to finish this piece and go pull the rest off the smoker. So here we have a bag of the finished product. You can see all that jerky in there. It ends up being about 1 pound of jerky. So we started with 2 pounds of raw meat, ended up with about 1 pound of jerky. This jerky will last for weeks in the fridge, but around here it'll probably last for 3 or 4 days. In total, slicing the meat, making the marinade, putting the meat on the smoker, active time to make this jerky was maybe an hour. There's not a lot of involved steps. It's just a lot of waiting steps. So hopefully this recipe has given you some ideas to try in your own kitchen. Maybe make some plum beet jerky like we've made here and see for yourself just how good it is. So I'm gonna have another piece now and see you guys next time. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment down below your favorite jerky recipe. All right, we'll see you soon.